The credit card terminal beeped 3 times in rapid succession, then flashed red. Declined. I stared at the screen, my wallet still open in my hands, while the young cashier shifted uncomfortably behind the register. This was impossible. I'd checked my account balance just that morning, and I had over $15,000 available across my cards. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my story today. I am curious, what part of the world are you tuning in from? Drop your city in the comments below. All right, let us dive into what happened to me. My fingers trembled as I pulled out my backup visa, sliding it across the counter with more force than intended. The cashier, a girl who couldn't have been more than 25, avoided my eyes as she swiped it. Another beep. Another red flash. Heat crawled up my neck, spreading across my cheeks as the other customers in line began to murmur behind me. "Try this one," I said, shoving my American Express forward. My voice came out sharper than I meant it to. The girl's hand hesitated over the card before she picked it up. I watched her scan it through the machine, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. The seconds stretched out like taffy. When that familiar red light blinked on again, my stomach dropped through the floor. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but all 3 cards are showing as declined. Do you have another form of payment?" I grabbed my phone from my purse, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. The screen lit up with 17 missed calls, all from numbers I didn't recognize. My banking app showed 0 available credit on all 3 cards, maxed out, every single one. I jabbed at the screen, pulling up my transaction history, and my vision blurred as I scrolled through pages of charges I'd never made. Electronic stores in Nevada, hotel stays in Florida, car rentals in Texas, thousands upon thousands of dollars, all spent in the last 72 hours while I'd been right here in Chicago. I abandoned my groceries on the counter and pushed through the glass doors into the parking lot. The August heat slammed into me like a wall, but I barely felt it. My fingers flew across the phone screen as I dialed the fraud department for my MasterCard. The automated system cycled through 3 menus before a human voice finally answered. "This is Patricia in Fraud Services. How can I help you today?" "My card's been stolen. There are charges all over the country that I didn't make." The woman's typing echoed through the phone line. A pause. Then her voice shifted, becoming careful, measured. "Ms. Hall, I'm showing here that we received a call about your account on August 14th. From your daughter. She expressed concerns about your mental competency and requested to be added as an authorized user for oversight purposes." The world tilted sideways. I gripped the hood of my car to steady myself, the hot metal burning my palm. "What? I don't have a daughter." More typing. The sound grated against my skull like sandpaper. The caller identified herself as Jasmine Hall. She provided your social security number, date of birth, and mother's maiden name. All information matched our records. My niece, my sister's daughter, the girl I'd helped put through nursing school, who'd lived in my basement apartment rent-free for 2 years. The air in my lungs turned to cement. I drove back to my apartment on autopilot, the phone pressed against my ear as I cycled through 4 more credit card companies. Each conversation followed the same script. A concerned family member had called. Questions about my ability to manage finances at my age. Mentions of forgetfulness, confusion, early signs of dementia. The words repeated until they became a hammer striking the same nail deeper into my chest. My hands trembled as I unlocked the apartment door. The living room looked exactly as I'd left it that morning. Coffee mug beside my completed crossword puzzle. Bills organized in neat stacks on the dining table. My laptop open to the retirement planning spreadsheet I'd been updating. Evidence of a functioning mind surrounded me, Yet somewhere out there, my family had constructed an alternate reality where I couldn't manage a checkbook. I sank onto the couch and pulled up my phone's recent call log. 3 missed calls from my sister yesterday. 2 the day before. I'd ignored them, assuming she wanted to borrow money again or needed help with her perpetually broken-down car. The nausea rolled through my stomach in waves. My tablet sat on the coffee table. I grabbed it and logged into my bank account with fingers that refused to stay steady. The checking account balance showed $47. Last week, it had been $4,000. The savings account I'd spent 15 years building, money set aside for the kitchen renovation I'd planned since before retirement, had been drained to $300. Transaction history scrolled across the screen. Cash withdrawals in Milwaukee where my sister lived. Online transfers. A PayPal payment to someone named Derek Hall nephew, my sister's oldest son. The dates aligned perfectly. While I'd been attending my book club on Tuesday evening, discussing post-war literature and drinking wine with women I'd known for 20 years, someone had been systematically dismantling my financial life. I pulled up my credit report on the laptop. The page loaded with agonizing slowness. New accounts appeared that I'd never opened. A department store card maxed at $5,000. A personal loan for $15,000 approved just yesterday. My credit score had plummeted from excellent to barely adequate in a matter of days. The doorbell rang. I jumped, nearly dropping the tablet. Through the peephole, I could see a delivery driver holding a clipboard and a small package. I opened the door a crack, keeping the chain engaged. Madison Hall? Yes. Sign here, please. He thrust the clipboard through the gap. I scribbled my name and took the package. It was light, no bigger than a shoebox. The return address showed a medical supply company in Tennessee. I tore it open on the kitchen counter. Adult diapers, extra large. A packing slip listed my sister's address as the billing location, my apartment as the shipping destination. The package slipped from my hands and hit the floor. They were building a paper trail. Evidence of incontinence, mental decline, inability to manage daily life. I pictured them showing these receipts to someone, a lawyer, a judge, a social worker. See how bad she's gotten. She doesn't even realize she needs help. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number for my bank's fraud department. My finger hovered over the call button, then stopped. What would I even say? My own family was doing this. The bank would ask if I'd given anyone access to my information, if I'd shared passwords or account numbers. And I had, years ago, after that minor surgery when Derek had helped me pay bills for 2 weeks while I recovered. The phone rang in my hand, making me flinch. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. Ms. Hall? This is Patricia from Elite Home Care Services. We received a referral for you regarding in-home assistance. My mouth went dry. I set the phone on speaker and placed it carefully on the counter, as if it might explode. I didn't request any services. Oh, well, your daughter Jasmine called this morning. She's quite concerned about your recent falls and memory issues. She mentioned you've been forgetting to take your medications? The room tilted slightly. I gripped the counter edge, my knuckles bleaching white against the granite. There had been no falls. My memory was sharp as ever. I could recite every client's name from my 30-year career as a civil engineer, every project deadline, every structural calculation that had mattered. There's been a mistake. I ended the call and immediately dialed Jasmine. Straight to voicemail. I tried Derek. Same thing. The pattern was too convenient, too calculated. They were avoiding me while setting everything in motion. My laptop still sat open on the coffee table. I pulled up my email and started scrolling back through the past month. There, 3 weeks ago, a password reset notification for my banking portal. I hadn't requested it. 2 weeks ago, an email confirming my new address on file with the credit bureaus. The address listed was Derek's house in Riverside. I grabbed my car keys and purse. My hands shook so badly, it took 3 tries to get the key into the ignition. The drive to Derek's place usually took 40 minutes, but I made it in 30, barely noticing the speed limit signs I blew past. His neighborhood sat nestled in one of those planned communities, with identical beige houses and manicured lawns that all looked the same. His car occupied the driveway. So did Jasmine's silver sedan. They were both home, both together, both still dodging my calls. I parked at the curb and marched up the walkway. My fist pounded against the front door hard enough to make my shoulder ache. Through the frosted glass panel, I could see movement inside. Shadows shifting. Voices murmuring. "I know you're in there." My voice came out hoarse, almost unrecognizable. The door opened a crack. Derek stood there in his weekend clothes, cargo shorts and a golf polo. His face wore an expression I'd never seen before, something between pity and determination. "Mom, you need to calm down. Let me in, now." He glanced over his shoulder, then stepped outside and pulled the door shut behind him. His body blocked the entrance, deliberate and immovable. "We were going to call you later. We're meeting with someone right now." "Who?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. His gaze fixed somewhere over my left shoulder, looking at the carefully trimmed hedges or the recycling bins or anything except his own mother's face. "An attorney, someone who specializes in conservatorships." The word hit like a physical blow. I actually took a step backward, my heel catching on the edge of the porch step. Derek reached out instinctively to steady me, but I jerked away from his touch. "You can't do this. We have to. You're not yourself anymore. The bills you've been missing, the confusion, the inappropriate purchases." "What inappropriate purchases? I haven't bought anything unusual." "Mom." His voice dropped lower, taking on that patronizing tone people use with children and the elderly. "The Home Shopping Network charges $3,000 in collectible dolls last month alone." My vision blurred at the edges. I pressed my palms against my temples, trying to force clarity through sheer will. I hadn't ordered any dolls. Hadn't watched home shopping channels since my mother died 15 years ago. The door opened again. Jasmine appeared beside Derek, her expression carefully neutral, professionally distant. She worked in pharmaceutical sales and had perfected that corporate mask of polite concern. "Maybe you should sit down. We can talk about this rationally." "There's nothing rational about stealing from me?" A man emerged from inside the house. Tall, 50s, wearing a suit despite the weekend. He carried a leather briefcase and had the look of someone accustomed to difficult conversations. The attorney. He paused in the doorway, taking in the scene with practiced assessment. "Ms. Hall, I'm Robert Chen. Perhaps we could all move inside and discuss this calmly." "Get away from me, all of you." I turned and half ran back to my car. Behind me, I could hear Derek calling my name, his footsteps on the pavement. But I was faster, fueled by adrenaline and betrayal. The car door slammed. The engine roared to life. I drove without seeing, my hands locked on the steering wheel so tight my knuckles had gone pale. The suburbs blurred past, manicured lawns, children's bicycles lying abandoned in driveways, afternoon sunlight glinting off sprinklers. Normal life continuing while mine imploded. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. Then again, and again. I grabbed it at a red light, thumbing through notifications. 17 missed calls, 23 text messages, all from Derek and Jasmine. The last one made my stomach drop. "Mom, please don't do anything rash. We can fix this together. Fix what they'd broken." The audacity burned in my chest like acid reflux. I pulled into the parking lot of First National Bank, the one I'd used for 37 years. The same bank where I'd opened my first checking account, where I'd gotten my mortgage, where teller number 3 still remembered my name at Christmas. The brick building looked the same as always, solid and dependable. But now it felt like walking into enemy territory. The lobby was nearly empty. Saturday afternoon meant skeleton crew. I approached the counter where a young woman with elaborate braids smiled automatically, then seemed to register something in my expression. Her smile faltered. "I need to speak with a manager, now." "Of course. Can I ask what this is regarding?" "Fraud." The word hung in the air between us. She picked up a phone, murmured something I couldn't hear. 2 minutes later, a woman in her 40s emerged from the back offices. She wore a navy blazer and had the tired eyes of someone who'd seen every banking crisis imaginable. "I'm Patricia Owens' branch manager. Please, come with me." I followed her past the teller stations, through a door marked Employees Only, into a small office that smelled of burnt coffee and printer toner. She gestured to a chair across from her desk. I sat, then immediately stood again, too agitated to remain still. "Someone has been using my credit cards, my children. They've been calling the bank, saying I'm incompetent, and now they're trying to take control of my finances." Patricia's fingers moved across her keyboard, eyes scanning whatever appeared on her screen. Her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Mrs. Hall, I see several flags on your accounts. When did you first become aware of these issues?" "Today, 20 minutes ago. What flags?" She turned her monitor so I could see. My transaction history scrolled down the screen in an endless column. Home shopping charges I'd never made. Online purchases I'd never authorized. Restaurant bills from places I'd never visited. 3 months of theft, right there in black and white. My legs gave out. I collapsed into the chair, staring at numbers that represented my life savings being systematically drained. There's more." Patricia's voice had gone gentle, the tone people use when delivering terminal diagnoses. "We received a call yesterday from someone identifying herself as your daughter. She expressed concern about your mental state, suggested you might be showing signs of dementia. She requested information about setting up a conservatorship." The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the desk, wood grain biting into my palms. "Did you give her anything?" "We can't discuss account details without proper legal documentation. But she was very persuasive. Asked specific questions about recent transactions, your account balances, whether we'd noticed any concerning behavior from you." I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app with shaking fingers. My savings account, the one I'd built over decades of careful budgeting and sacrifice, showed a balance I didn't recognize. $20,000 less than it should be. "I need to freeze everything. All cards, all accounts, all access." Patricia nodded, already typing. "I'll put holds on all your cards immediately. We'll need to file a formal fraud report. Do you want to involve the police?" The question hung heavy. Involving police meant accusing my own children of crimes. But they'd already crossed that line, hadn't they? They'd painted me as a confused old woman, too addled to manage her own life. "Yes." The word came out stronger than I felt. Patricia picked up her desk phone, punched in a number. While she spoke in low tones to whoever answered, I stared at my reflection in her darkened computer monitor. I looked older than I remembered. When had those lines deepened around my mouth? When had my hair gotten so gray at the temples? Maybe that's what they saw. Not the woman who'd raised them alone after their father died. Not the woman who'd worked 2 jobs to put them through college. just an aging obstacle standing between them and what they thought they deserved. The office door opened. A uniformed police officer stepped inside, his utility belt creaking with equipment. He looked maybe 30, with the careful posture of someone trained to assess threats quickly. "I'm Officer Lewis. I understand you want to report financial fraud?" I stood, squaring my shoulders, forcing steel into my spine. "My children have been stealing from me, and they're trying to have me declared incompetent to cover their tracks." I pulled out my phone and laid it on Patricia's desk between us. The screen still showed Derek's last text message from yesterday. "Mom, we need to talk about getting you some help. You're forgetting things." Officer Lewis leaned forward, pulling a notepad from his breast pocket. His pen clicked once, twice, a nervous rhythm that filled the silence. "There's more?" I said, scrolling through my messages. "They've been building a narrative, making it look like I can't handle my affairs." My fingers found the voicemail app. I hit speaker. Jasmine's voice filled the room, sweet and concerned in a way that now made my stomach turn. "Hi, Mom. It's me again. You didn't show up for lunch today. I was worried sick. Are you sure you're remembering your appointments?" I deleted the message. The next one played automatically. Derek this time. "Mom, the neighbor called. Said you left your stove on again. We really need to discuss assisted living options." The lies were so casual, so practiced. I'd never left my stove on. I'd never missed lunch with Jasmine because we'd never scheduled one. Each fabricated incident carefully documented, building their case. Patricia's hand covered mine, stopping me from playing more. "Save those. Don't delete them. They're evidence." Officer Lewis was writing faster now, his expression hardening. "Do you have the credit card statements?" I lifted my purse from the floor, pulled out the manila folder I'd been carrying since this morning. The weight of it had seemed crushing earlier. Now it felt like armor. I spread the papers across Patricia's desk, my hands finally steady. 5 months of statements, each one showing charges I'd never made. "Bergdorf Goodman, $4,000. I haven't been to New York in 3 years. My finger moved to the next highlighted charge. "Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, $800. I don't eat red meat." Officer Lewis photographed each page with his phone, the camera clicking rapidly. Patricia circled specific charges with a red pen, her movements sharp and precise. "This one," she said, tapping a charge from 2 weeks ago. "Miami Beach Resort, $7,200, 5 nights." I remembered that weekend. I'd been home, reorganizing my closet, finding old photo albums. Jasmine and Derek had both been unreachable, their phones going straight to voicemail. Now I knew why. They'd been lying on a beach, drinking cocktails purchased with my retirement savings. The officer's radio crackled. He turned down the volume without looking away from the statements. "Mrs. Hall, I need to ask, do your children have access to your home?" The question landed like a punch. "They have keys. For emergencies." "We should check your house. They might have documents there. Social security numbers, account information, maybe correspondence with the guardianship attorney." My breath caught. I hadn't thought of that. What else had they taken from my home while I was at work? What other pieces of my life had they rifled through, looking for leverage? Patricia stood, her chair rolling backward. "I'm coming with you." We moved through the bank lobby as a unit, drawing stares from other customers. The afternoon sun hit me like a wall when we stepped outside. Officer Lewis's patrol car sat at the curb, its presence making everything feel more real, more dangerous. I climbed into my own car, my hands gripping the steering wheel hard enough to make my knuckles ache. Patricia slid into the passenger seat. Through my rearview mirror, I watched Officer Lewis pull out behind us, His lights off, but his presence impossible to ignore. The drive to my house took 12 minutes. 12 minutes of my mind racing through every conversation, every visit, every time I'd trusted them alone in my home. The tree-lined streets of my neighborhood passed in a blur. Mrs. Chen was watering her roses next door. The Morrison kids were drawing with chalk on their driveway. Normal life, continuing while mine fractured. My house looked undisturbed from the outside. The blue shutters I'd painted last spring. The flower boxes Derek had promised to help me plant but never did. I pulled into the driveway, my tires crunching over gravel. Officer Lewis parked on the street. He approached my car as I got out, his hand resting casually near his belt. "Let me go in first, just to be safe." I unlocked the front door. The familiar scent of my home, lavender and old books, should have been comforting. Instead, it felt violated. Officer Lewis moved past me, checking rooms with practiced efficiency. "Clear," he called from the kitchen. I walked to my home office, Patricia close behind me. The room looked exactly as I'd left it this morning. Desk neat, files organized, but when I opened my filing cabinet, the one where I kept all my important documents, my heart stopped. The drawer hung empty except for a few scattered papers. My birth certificate, my mortgage papers, my will. My power of attorney documents, all gone. The floor tilted beneath my feet. I gripped the edge of the filing cabinet, feeling the cold metal bite into my palms. Behind me, Patricia gasped. The sound seemed to come from underwater, distant and distorted. My knees buckled. I caught myself against the desk, knocking over a ceramic pen holder. It shattered on the hardwood floor, blue shards scattering across my feet. I stared at the broken pieces, unable to process anything beyond the gaping emptiness of that drawer. Officer Lewis appeared in the doorway, his radio crackling with static. He took one look at my face and moved quickly to my side, guiding me into my office chair. The leather creaked under my weight. My vision tunneled, black spots dancing at the edges. "Head between your knees," he said, his hand firm on my shoulder. I bent forward, breathing in short gasps. The blood rushed to my head, making my ears ring. Patricia's shoes, sensible navy flats, moved into my field of vision. She crouched beside the filing cabinet, her fingers tracing the empty space where my life's documentation had been. "The lock's not damaged," she said quietly. "They had a key." The words hit me like physical blows. I'd given Jasmine a key 2 years ago, when she'd offered to check on the house while I was visiting my sister in Atlanta. My sister. God, I needed to call her. Tell her that her niece and nephew were thieves. That the family we'd raised together had turned into something unrecognizable. I sat up slowly, the room spinning. My desk phone sat 3 feet away, its cord dangling. How many times had Jasmine or Derek sat in this very chair, going through my files while I made them lunch? While I wrote them checks? While I trusted them with everything? My hands shook as I pulled open the desk drawers. Bank statements, gone. Investment portfolio copies, gone. Even my passport, which I'd kept in the bottom drawer, had vanished. Only random office supplies remained: paper clips, sticky notes, a broken stapler. Patricia stood and moved to my bookshelf. She ran her finger along the spines, stopping at a gap I hadn't noticed. "Your address book, the leather one." I nodded, unable to speak. That book contained everything: phone numbers, account numbers I'd written in the back pages, passwords to old accounts. My mother had given it to me 30 years ago. Jasmine used to play with it as a child, pretending to make important calls. Officer Lewis spoke into his radio, requesting additional units. His voice carried the clipped efficiency of someone who'd seen this before. But not like this. Not with this level of premeditation. I forced myself to stand, gripping the desk edge for balance. My reflection stared back at me from the dark computer monitor. Drawn face, gray curls disheveled, eyes hollowed with betrayal. I looked like a stranger. The home phone suddenly rang, shrill and demanding. All three of us froze. It rang again. Patricia moved to answer it, but I held up my hand. Let it go to voicemail, I managed. The machine clicked on after 4 rings. My own voice, recorded years ago, cheerful and welcoming. Then the beep. Mom, it's me. Jasmine's voice filled the office. I know you're probably screening. Look, Derek and I talked. We think you should come stay with me for a few days, just until you feel better. We're worried about you being alone. My stomach lurched. I lunged for the wastebasket beside my desk and retched, bringing up nothing but bile. Patricia's hand pressed against my back, steadying me. Officer Lewis stepped into the hallway, his radio chatter muffled. You're confused, Mom, Jasmine continued, her voice dripping with false concern. The doctor said this might happen. Memory problems, confusion. I've already called Dr. Reynolds. He wants to see you tomorrow. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand, tasting acid. Dr. Reynolds was my internist of 15 years. Had they called him too? Planted seeds of doubt about my mental capacity? Just come to my house, okay? We'll take care of everything. You don't need to worry about bills or paperwork or any of that. We've got it handled. The machine beeped. Silence flooded back. Patricia's face had gone white. They're creating a narrative, documentation of your supposed incompetence. I pushed myself upright, legs trembling. Every muscle in my body felt like it had been beaten. My chest ached with each breath. I walked to the window, looking out at my backyard. The vegetable garden I'd planted in May. The bird feeder Derek had installed last Christmas. Officer Lewis returned, his expression grim. I need you to make a list of everything missing. Be as detailed as possible, and I'm calling in a detective. How long? My voice came out hoarse. Detective Reyes can be here in 20 minutes. Another name to remember. Another person to explain this nightmare to. I nodded, turning back to the violated filing cabinet. My legs felt like they might give out again, but I stayed upright through sheer force of will. Patricia handed me a notepad from my desk. Start with the most important documents first. I clicked the pen. My hand shook so badly, the first few words came out illegible. I steadied my wrist with my other hand and began writing. Birth certificate, social security card, passport, deed to the house. Each item was another piece of my identity, another tool they could use to dismantle my life. The afternoon sun slanted through the window, casting long shadows across the empty drawer. Somewhere in this city, my children sat with my entire documented existence spread out before them, planning their next move. The doorbell rang at exactly 23 minutes past 3. I watched the digital clock on my desk tick over as heavy footsteps crossed my porch. Officer Lewis moved past me, his uniform brushing against my shoulder, leaving the scent of starch and afternoon sweat in his wake. Detective Reyes filled my doorway with broad shoulders and a weathered face that mapped out decades of difficult conversations. Salt and pepper hair cropped military short. Eyes that swept my living room in 3 seconds flat, cataloging the overturned lamp, the scattered papers, the violated filing cabinet with its gaping drawer. Mrs. Hall. He extended a hand calloused enough that I felt every ridge. Walk me through what happened. I led him room by room, my legs still unsteady, Patricia trailing behind us like a shadow. My bedroom with its rifled dresser. The bathroom medicine cabinet hanging open, prescription bottles toppled. The spare bedroom where they'd dumped out boxes of old tax returns, leaving decades of financial history scattered across the carpet like autumn leaves. Each step sent fresh waves of violation through my chest. My heart hammered against my ribs, an irregular rhythm that made me dizzy. I gripped the doorframe, knuckles white against the wood. "You need to sit," Patricia said behind me. "I need to finish this." Detective Reyes crouched beside the spare bedroom closet, photographing something with his phone. The flash made white spots dance across my vision. He pulled on latex gloves, extracted a folder from beneath a stack of old photo albums. My medical records from 2019. The neurological workup after those headaches that turned out to be nothing but stress. They left this deliberately. He turned it toward me, showing pages with certain passages highlighted in yellow. Words jumped out: memory testing, cognitive assessment, anxiety diagnosis. My stomach lurched. I pressed my hand against the wall, feeling the texture of paint beneath my palm, using it to anchor myself to reality. They'd marked the sections that could be twisted, misinterpreted, weaponized. This wasn't just theft. Detective Reyes stood, knees cracking. This was research. "For the conservatorship petition," Patricia said. "They're building their case." The detective's phone buzzed. He stepped into the hallway, voice dropping to a murmur. I caught fragments. Warrant, financial records, emergency investigation. Each word was a stone dropping into dark water, ripples spreading outward. I walked back to my bedroom, legs moving on autopilot. My jewelry box sat open on the dresser. They'd taken my mother's wedding ring, the diamond earrings my ex-husband gave me for our 10th anniversary, the pearl necklace I'd bought myself when I made partner. Not for the money, for the hurt. My hands started shaking again, tremors running up both arms. I grabbed the dresser edge, holding on as a wave of dizziness crashed over me. Black spots crowded my peripheral vision. My breath came in short, sharp gasps that didn't seem to bring enough oxygen. "Madison?" Patricia appeared beside me, hand on my elbow. "You're hyperventilating. Slow breaths." I tried. My lungs wouldn't cooperate. The room tilted sideways. Patricia guided me to the bed, pushed my head down between my knees. Blood rushed in my ears, drowning out everything else. I focused on the carpet between my feet. Beige Berber, installed in 2015. Small coffee stain near the nightstand from last Tuesday morning. Gradually, the roaring subsided. My breathing evened out. I raised my head, room spinning slightly before settling back into place. Detective Reyes stood in the doorway, phone still in hand. "Your credit card companies are cooperating. They're sending over records of who called in, when, what was said." He paused. "Your daughter Jasmine used your maiden name and birth date as verification." The words hit like physical blows. I'd given her that information myself, years ago, in case of emergencies, never imagining she'd use it against me. "There's more." His expression darkened. "Someone called your doctor's office this morning claiming to be you. Said you were moving out of state and needed all your medical records transferred to a new physician. The receptionist got suspicious because the voice sounded younger. She refused. My doctor's office. They'd tried to intercept my medical history before I could use it to defend myself." I stood up too fast, head swimming. Patricia steadied me again, her grip firm on my upper arm. "How far does this go?" My voice cracked on the last word. "I'm putting a flag on all your accounts, medical records, legal documents. Nothing moves without your direct, verified approval." Detective Reyes pocketed his phone. "But Mrs. Hall, you need to understand something. They've been planning this for months." Maybe longer. The afternoon sun had shifted, throwing the bedroom into shadow. I looked at the empty jewelry box, the ransacked dresser, the bed where I'd slept peacefully just last night, unaware my children were orchestrating my destruction. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Text message from an unknown number. I pulled it out with trembling hands, read the words that made my blood go cold. Mom, we're doing this because we love you. Stop fighting, and it will be easier for everyone. Story block, 8:10. I drove through the darkness, my hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. The address Detective Reyes had given me glowed on my phone's GPS, a storage facility on the industrial edge of town. Patricia sat in the passenger seat, her face illuminated by the dashboard lights as she checked the pepper spray I'd insisted she bring. The facility loomed ahead, rows of orange-doored units stretching into shadows. Unit 237. That's where the bank records showed Derek had been making monthly payments for the past 6 months. My jewelry wasn't the only thing they'd been planning to hide. I pulled into the lot and killed the engine. The silence pressed against my eardrums. Security lights cast pools of yellow across cracked pavement, but whole sections remained dark. Perfect for concealing evidence. We should wait for the detective. Patricia's voice was barely a whisper. I was already out of the car, moving toward the third row. My feet knew the path before my mind caught up. The lock on Unit 237 was heavy-duty, expensive. I pulled out the bolt cutters Patricia had retrieved from my garage, the ones I'd bought years ago when Derek first borrowed them and never returned. Poetic justice. The metal groaned under pressure. My arms burned, muscles screaming, but I squeezed harder. The lock snapped with a sound like a gunshot. I froze, listening. Only crickets and distant traffic answered. The door rolled up with a metallic shriek that made my teeth ache. I fumbled for my phone's flashlight, swept the beam across the unit's interior, and felt my stomach drop. Boxes, dozens of them, stacked floor to ceiling, each one labeled in Jasmine's neat handwriting. Mom's china, Mom's silver, Mom's photos. My entire life catalogued and boxed like I was already dead. I stumbled forward, tore open the nearest container. My mother's wedding china stared back at me, each piece wrapped in newspaper. I grabbed another box. The pearl necklace my father gave me for my 30th birthday. The one I'd been certain I'd misplaced. Another box revealed my birth certificate, original Social Security card, even my marriage license to their father. Oh my God! Patricia stood in the doorway, her phone's light joining mine. How long have they been doing this? I couldn't answer. My throat had closed. I ripped through box after box, each one revealing another piece of my identity they'd systematically erased. Photo albums from my childhood, tax returns from the past decade. The deed to my house. How had they gotten that? My fingers found a manila folder wedged between 2 boxes. I pulled it free, spilling papers across the concrete floor. Legal documents, a competency petition already filled out, waiting for a doctor's signature. A power of attorney granting Jasmine full control of my assets. A proposed living arrangement at Sunny Meadows Memory Care, the same facility where I'd visited a friend last year and commented how depressing it seemed. They'd listened. They'd remembered. They'd planned. Footsteps echoed through the facility, heavy, purposeful, coming closer. I shoved the documents into my jacket, signaled Patricia to kill her light. We pressed against the back wall of the unit, hidden behind towers of stolen boxes. The footsteps stopped outside Unit 237. I told you we should have moved this stuff tonight. Derek's voice, tight with panic. Calm down. She doesn't know about this place. Jasmine sounded confident, controlled. The way she always did when lying. Light flooded the unit as they raised the door higher. I watched through a gap between boxes as my children entered what they thought was their secret vault. Derek carried empty boxes, clearly planning to relocate everything. Jasmine held a clipboard, checking items off a list like she was managing inventory. "We need to get the deed registered before she figures out we copied it," Derek said, setting his boxes down. "Once that nursing home evaluates her, she's not getting evaluated." I stepped out from behind the boxes, documents clutched in my shaking hands. Jasmine whirled, her clipboard clattering to the floor. Derek's face went pale, then red, then a mottled combination of both. For 3 heartbeats, nobody moved. Then Derek lunged for the documents in my hands. I sidestepped, muscle memory from years of church volleyball serving me well, and his momentum carried him past me into a stack of boxes. China shattered with sounds like breaking bones. He scrambled up, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Desperation mixed with rage. "You're not taking this from us!" He came at me again, faster. Patricia stepped into his path, pepper spray raised. "Stop right there!" But Jasmine was already moving toward me from the other side, her hands reaching for the folder. I backed toward the door, my hip colliding with a metal shelf. Pain shot through my side, but I kept moving, kept the evidence out of reach. "Mom, please!" Jasmine's voice shifted, becoming the little girl I'd comforted through nightmares. "We're trying to protect you. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking clearly enough to see you've been robbing me blind." Derek recovered, circling around Patricia. The 3 of them formed a loose semicircle, cutting off my escape. The storage facility's silence felt suffocating. No other customers, no security guard, just us and the evidence of their betrayal. Jasmine's eyes flicked to Derek, some silent communication passing between them. They moved in unison, converging from both sides. I ran. I burst through the storage unit door into the parking lot, my shoes slapping against asphalt still hot from afternoon sun. The folder pressed against my chest like armor. Behind me, footsteps pounded. 2 sets, maybe 3. My car sat 50 yards away across the expanse of concrete. My lungs burned. 59 years of age caught up with me in the distance between breaths. The sedan's unlock button felt slippery under my trembling thumb. Nothing happened. I pressed again, running, closing the gap to 30 yards. Derek's hand grabbed my shoulder, spinning me around. The folder flew from my grasp, papers scattering across the parking lot like desperate birds. I stumbled backward, catching myself against a pickup truck's tailgate. "Enough of this!" He bent to gather the documents, his movements frantic. I kicked the nearest paper, sending it skittering under a car. Then another. My heel connected with a bank statement, propelling it toward a storm drain. Derek dove, his knees scraping pavement, but I was already moving, collecting papers with both hands, stuffing them into my purse, my pockets, anywhere they'd fit. Jasmine reached me first, trying to pry my purse away. The strap cut into my shoulder as we struggled. I twisted, using her momentum to send us both stumbling. The purse strap snapped. She fell hard, and for a moment I saw shock register on her face. I'd never fought back before, never pushed, never resisted. Patricia's voice cut through the chaos. "Police are 2 minutes out. I called them when we were inside." Derek froze, hands full of crumpled papers. Jasmine looked up from the ground, her expression shifting from anger to fear. Real fear. I gathered the remaining documents, my movements deliberate now. A breeze lifted a credit card statement, and I trapped it under my foot before retrieving it. Blood dripped from my scraped palms onto the paper, but I didn't care. Each document was proof. Each one mattered. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Derek dropped the papers he'd collected. They fluttered down around his feet like autumn leaves. He turned to Jasmine, reaching down to help her up, but she pulled away from him. Something passed between them. Blame, perhaps, or the recognition of consequences finally arriving. 2 patrol cars turned into the facility, lights flashing. Patricia walked toward them, her phone still in hand. I remained where I stood, my arms full of evidence, my entire body shaking from adrenaline and something else. Relief, maybe, or the beginning of it. The officers emerged, hands near their belts, assessing the scene. An older man with gray at his temples approached first. His eyes took in the scattered papers, my torn clothing, Jasmine still on the ground, Derek standing over her. "Ma'am, are you injured?" I looked down at my scraped palms, my torn blouse, the blood staining my favorite slacks. "I'm fine, but I need to file charges." Derek's face crumbled. He aged 10 years in that moment, his shoulders sagging. Jasmine stood slowly, brushing gravel from her knees. She wouldn't meet my eyes. The officer's partner began collecting the scattered documents, placing them carefully in evidence bags. Each paper disappeared into plastic, officially recorded now. Beyond denial, beyond explanation. "These are your children?" The officer's tone remained neutral, professional. "Yes." The word tasted like ash. "And this is Patricia Owens, my attorney. She has additional documentation." Patricia stepped forward, producing a manila envelope from her briefcase. The officer took it, his expression darkening as he scanned the contents. He looked at Derek and Jasmine differently then, not as concerned family members, but as suspects. "We're going to need statements from everyone." He gestured toward the patrol cars. Separately. Derek finally found his voice. "Mom, please, we can fix this. We can pay it back." I turned away, walking toward the first patrol car. My legs felt like water, but I kept moving. The officer opened the door for me, and I slid into the back seat. Through the window, I watched Derek try to approach, watched the second officer intercept him, begin asking questions. Jasmine stood alone in the middle of the parking lot, surrounded by scattered papers neither of them had managed to retrieve. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. Her hands hung at her sides, empty of the clipboard she'd carried like a shield. The officer slid into the front seat, adjusting his rear-view mirror to see me. "Take your time, ma'am. When you're ready, start from the beginning." I took a breath, then another. Through the window, I saw Patricia speaking with the second officer, gesturing toward Jasmine and Derek. The evidence was everywhere now, in plastic bags, in official hands, recorded in police notebooks. No more secrets, no more gaslighting, no more letting love excuse theft. "It started 6 months ago," I began, my voice steady, "when I noticed charges I didn't make. 6 months later, the autumn sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my new apartment, casting geometric shadows across the hardwood floors. I set my coffee mug on the granite counter, my counter, in my space, purchased with my own carefully monitored funds. The silence here was different from the silence in that old house. This one felt like peace, not isolation. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Court-mandated restitution payment received. I swiped it away and opened my banking app instead, scrolling through transactions I now checked twice daily. Every charge accounted for, every dollar mine. The balance had climbed steadily since I'd stopped being everyone's emergency fund, everyone's safety net, everyone's mark. I walked to the bedroom and pulled my blazer from the closet. The fabric was new, crisp, purchased without guilt. My reflection in the mirror showed a woman who'd lost 15 pounds of stress, whose shoulders no longer curved inward like she was bracing for the next blow. Gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. Gold earrings Patricia had given me last month for my 60th birthday. Real gold, not the costume jewelry I'd worn for years, because the kids needed new shoes, or Derek's business needed one more investment. The keys to my car, also new, a modest sedan with working locks and a payment plan I could actually afford, sat on the entry table. I grabbed them along with my purse, checking the contents out of habit. Wallet, phone, the small canister of pepper spray Patricia had insisted I carry, and tucked in the side pocket, the court order documenting Jasmine's guilty plea and Derek's probation terms. I didn't need to carry it anymore. The lawyer had told me that weeks ago, but some mornings I still reached for it, needing the weight of vindication in my hands. The drive to the community center took 20 minutes through streets lined with changing leaves. I parked in my usual spot, third row from the entrance, and gathered the stack of folders from my passenger seat. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed above linoleum floors that squeaked under my loafers. The smell of industrial coffee and photocopier toner filled the hallway. "Madison!" A woman waved from the sign-in desk. "Room 3 is all set up for you." I nodded my thanks and pushed through the door. 15 chairs arranged in a circle. A small table with water bottles and tissues, posters on the walls about financial literacy, elder rights, recognizing abuse. I'd sat in one of these chairs 4 months ago, shaking so hard I couldn't hold my water bottle steady, listening to strangers describe the exact nightmare I'd been living. Now I stood at the front, arranging my handouts, checking my notes. The door opened at exactly 10 o'clock. A man in his 70s shuffled in, eyes downcast. Then a woman around my age, wringing her hands. 2 more followed, then 3. By the time I called the meeting to order, 9 people sat in that circle, all wearing the same expression I'd seen in my own mirror half a year ago. Shame, confusion, the desperate hope that someone might understand. "Good morning," I said, standing in the center of the circle where everyone could see me. "My name is Madison Hall, and my daughter stole $47,000 from me over the course of 18 months. The words came easier each time I said them. No more whispering, no more couching it in euphemisms like financial difficulties or family misunderstandings. She told my credit card companies I was incompetent. She forged my signature. She convinced me I was losing my mind. I made eye contact with each person, watching recognition dawn in their faces. And for a long time, I let her, because I couldn't believe my own child would do that to me." A woman in the front row wiped her eyes. The elderly man nodded slowly, his hands clasped tight in his lap. I spent the next hour walking them through it. How to check credit reports, how to freeze accounts, how to document everything, every call, every charge, every lie. I passed around copies of the forms I'd filled out, the paper trail that had built my case. I showed them Patricia's business card, explaining how having an advocate made the difference between being dismissed and being heard. "The hardest part isn't the legal process," I said as the session wound down. "It's accepting that the people who hurt us are the people we love, that our trust was a weapon they used against us." The woman who'd been crying raised her hand. Do you still talk to your daughter?" I took a breath, feeling the familiar ache in my chest. "No, she sent letters through her lawyer. Apologies. Explanations about stress and debt and how she never meant for it to go so far." I shook my head. "But I don't owe her my forgiveness just because she's sorry she got caught. Maybe someday, but not today." The man spoke up, his voice rough. My son says I'm tearing the family apart by pressing charges. Your son tore the family apart when he stole from you, I replied firmly. You're just refusing to pretend it didn't happen. After they filed out, taking their folders and water bottles and raw, exposed grief, I stayed behind to straighten the chairs. Patricia appeared in the doorway, her tablet tucked under one arm. How'd it go? 3 of them are ready to file police reports. 2 need more time. The rest are still deciding. I pushed the last chair into place. It's a start. She smiled, crossing the room to squeeze my shoulder. You're making a difference. These people need to see someone who came out the other side. We walked together to the parking lot. My phone buzzed again. A text from the bank confirming my automatic savings deposit. Another buzz. The senior center asking if I could lead a workshop on financial fraud next month. I typed quick responses, my fingers steady on the screen. Dinner tomorrow? Patricia asked as we reached our cars. There's a new Ethiopian place downtown. Only if we split the check, I said. And I mean actually split it. Not your treat, not my treat. She laughed. Deal. I drove home as the sun angled lower, turning the sky orange and pink. My apartment building rose ahead, modest but mine. Inside, I kicked off my shoes and hung my blazer carefully in the closet. The evening stretched ahead, quiet, predictable, safe. No unexpected visitors. No one demanding money I didn't have for emergencies that weren't real. No one telling me I was confused, incompetent, losing my grip on reality. I made dinner, salmon, roasted vegetables, brown rice. Ate slowly at my small table, reading a mystery novel between bites. Washed the dishes immediately after, leaving nothing for morning me to handle. Took my evening medications from properly labeled bottles. No one hovering to help by controlling my prescriptions. At 9 o'clock, I settled on my couch with herbal tea and opened my laptop. The support group website needed updating. 3 new members had requested information. I typed careful responses, remembering how desperate I'd been for answers, for validation, for proof that I wasn't crazy. The doorbell didn't ring. No one tried the locks. No one showed up crying about evictions or repossessions, or one more crisis that only my money could solve. Just silence. Just peace. Just me. I closed the laptop and carried my empty mug to the kitchen. Tomorrow, I'd facilitate another group. Next week, the financial literacy workshop. The month after, testimony at Jasmine's sentencing hearing. My calendar was full of purpose now, not obligations. Full of choices I made, not demands others placed on me. The woman in the mirror as I brushed my teeth looked tired, but content. Older, yes. Changed, absolutely. But standing straight now, meeting her own eyes without flinching. I'd survived. More than that, I'd rebuilt. And every person who sat in those circles, clutching their folders and their stories and their fragile hope, would know it was possible. That coming forward wasn't the end. That pressing charges wasn't cruel. That protecting yourself from the people who hurt you wasn't betrayal. It was survival. I turned off the lights and climbed into bed, my bed, in my home, purchased with money no one could take from me anymore. Sleep came easily these days. No more lying awake wondering what I'd forgotten, what I'd missed, what new disaster would surface in the morning. Just dreams. Just rest. Just the sound of my own breathing in the dark. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.